Hi, I'm David at TED-IELTS, and today I'm going to teach you some vocabulary for describing cities. In order to do this, I'm going to divide this video into 4 main chapters, which you can navigate through using the timestamps down below. I recommend that you get a pen and a notebook so that you can take notes of the interesting vocabulary you encounter. It's also going to be very helpful later when you want to revise this so you can remember it better. Right, let's jump into our lesson. First of all, we're going to look at the different parts of a city. Here's a map of a city. Although every city is different, most of them have certain features. There is usually a place you could call the city center. This doesn't have to be literally at the geographical center of a city, but it is going to be the most built up part of the city. Some very large cities might have more than one center, but generally there is just one. You will often hear this called downtown, particularly in the United States. It might also be called the Central Business District, or CBD. The area immediately around the center is often considered the inner city. This could feature a range of businesses as well as some homes. In large cities, there will probably be a lot of big buildings. There will also probably be various amenities and transport links here, such as bus lines and subway stops. Please note when using this term that it has a fairly negative connotation. When people talk about the inner city, they usually mean a poor area that might be somewhat overcrowded and run down. Beyond that, you will usually encounter suburbs. This word comes from suburban, showing that it is part of an urban area but not entirely within it. This is a primarily residential area within a city. It is usually not very built up, and so there will be more houses and fewer apartment buildings. In the Western world, you usually find that this is a peaceful place with lots of families. People live here because they can commute to work quite easily. The suburbs have some of the perks of city life coupled with the relative peace and space of the countryside. Beyond the suburbs, you might find the outskirts of a city. This just means the edges of a city. It's where the city ends and the countryside begins, so you might find more houses or other urban features. What else do we have? Cities often include industrial sectors, and you might have small pockets of commercial land dotted around the edges of a city or in between suburban areas. There may be areas of green space. These could be parks or just areas left undeveloped for various reasons. In many European cities, there is an area called the Old Town. As the name suggests, this is part of a city that is a lot of old buildings and maybe there will be statues and so on. Cities are also usually divided up into different sections. The names will be different from one city or country to the next. These areas or neighborhoods will usually have their own characteristics. Now that we've seen the different parts of a city, let's look at the buildings we might find. Many big cities will have one or more areas of big, tall buildings called skyscrapers. These will usually be found in the central business district. Skyscrapers are buildings over 100 meters tall. They are usually for business purposes, so they typically have offices in them. However, you might also find apartments or hotel rooms inside. Whilst you may find that there are apartments inside skyscrapers, most apartment buildings are a lot smaller. In cities all around the world, apartment buildings are now a common feature. They are also known as apartment blocks or flats. In the UK, we usually call them blocks of flats. You can see more kinds of housing in these images, although not all of them are found in the city. Cottages, for example, are primarily located in the countryside, and chalets are found mostly in the mountains. In the middle of cities, we also find a lot of office buildings. As the name suggests, these are buildings that have offices in them. If you want to learn more about this topic, you can click the link up in the top left of the screen. Cities have many other types of buildings. We have libraries and courthouses, for example. There are supermarkets and malls. There are schools, museums, post offices, cinemas, and town halls. Of course, we have many types of transportation hubs, such as bus stations, train stations, subway stations, and so on. Then there are sports facilities like stadiums and sports centers, as well as places of worship, churches, mosques, and temples. What other features do we have in cities? Well, it depends on the city, of course. There may be art galleries and historical landmarks. Many cities have famous statues, monuments, murals, or fantastic feats of architecture. These could include bridges or fountains. If you were a tourist, you might search online or look at a guidebook to find the various tourist attractions and places of interest. These may include gardens, such as botanical gardens, aquariums, water parks, and amusement parks, concert halls and amphitheaters, public squares and plazas, and so on. Perhaps there's a tower with an observation deck for you to look out over the city. You might find that a short walk up a nearby hill will provide you with a similar view if you can find a viewpoint. Here you can take in the city skyline. When talking about individual cities, you might say, this city is famous for, and then give its features, such as a major park, museum, building, or harbor. You may also add something more abstract or mention a type of food or cultural practice. For example, we could say, Los Angeles is famous for its film industry. We've seen a lot of nouns now, and so hopefully you're able to talk about various parts of the cities and the buildings and features around them. So let's look at some adjectives now. These are words that we use to describe things, so they allow us to be more descriptive. Oh, and by the way, before you go any further, you can hit the like button if this video has been helpful for you, and you might want to subscribe so that you don't miss future videos. It's also a great way to support the channel. Personally, I don't really like cities. I grew up in the countryside, and so for me, the adjectives that spring to mind are quite negative. When I think about cities, I think of words like overcrowded, noisy, busy, dusty, polluted, and dirty. You can see me talking about the countryside up in this video here. However, other people really like cities. They might use words like exciting, exhilarating, buzzing, bustling, stimulating, and so on. These all have positive connotations, and they show that cities are lively places with much going on. Being a bit more objective, we might talk about the size and layout of a city. It might be vast or sprawling like Tokyo. On the other hand, it might be compact like San Francisco. It might be a modern metropolis or a quaint little city that's barely bigger than a town. A city that does not have much culture or international influence might be called provincial, while a bigger and more diverse city would be called cosmopolitan. A city might be modern or it might be ancient. It might be bustling, but on the other hand, it might be sleepy or peaceful. A religious city might be described as holy, but a place like Bangkok that draws millions of tourists each year could be referred to as touristy. To be blunt, some cities are beautiful, cultured, and picturesque, while others are ugly, boring, and unappealing. Some are very expensive, whilst others are affordable. Some are convenient for things like travel, but others are inconvenient because it's hard for visitors to find their way around. All in all, the adjectives you use to describe a city will totally depend on the city that you want to describe. You would probably use quite different words to talk about Beijing, London, Miami, and Cape Town, for example. Now I want to show you some examples of me describing different cities. I will use some of the words we previously encountered as well as some new words and phrases specific to these places, so listen carefully. Paris is the capital of France and it's known internationally as a romantic city. It is famous for its cafe culture and its glorious architecture and museums filled with historic artworks. A trip to Paris wouldn't be complete without going to see the Eiffel Tower and strolling along the banks of the River Seine. Tokyo is a sprawling modern metropolis and one of the most modern cities in the world. In fact, it's more than modern, it's downright futuristic. Despite being so massive, Tokyo is a strangely peaceful and orderly city, and it's very clean. Getting around is easy because of the impressive transportation network. Visitors love to see the bustling streets and vibrant markets. Bangkok is the capital of Thailand and one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Visitors love the sleepy streets and the slow winding rivers. They like to walk along the banks of the canals and see the impressive wildlife that lives there. Bangkok is also famous for its nightlife and is a major shopping hub thanks to its collection of giant malls. It is a more accessible city than others in the region because of its developed transport network. Right, that's all for today, folks. What city would you choose to describe if you were asked about this in your IELTS test? Let me know in the comments section below. And while you're down there, if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to let me know.